So now the category of ceramics which are called cements. Remember, we are not talking of concrete. Concrete has cement mixed with sand and other things. So concrete is a composite, a particulate composite. We are talking here just of the cement, right? That very fine gray powder that comes in bags from the cement factory. Then you mix this cement with sand and other things to make concrete, right? So concrete is a composite, cement is a ceramic, right? So very quickly, cement is there, basically big one, hydraulic cement, non-hydraulic cement, and the most common hydraulic cement is called Portland cement. The first company which started it and so on, right? So hydraulic, non-hydraulic. And then what is the Portland cement? What are the components? Tricalcium silicate, dicalcium silicate, and so on. This Portland cement is the type of cement which is used in most of concrete. Classes of Portland cement: type 1, 2, 3, 4, general use, special qualities, and so on. Cement nomenclature, because a lot of chemistry is there: alumina, calcium oxide, iron oxide. So A, C, F, these are the names of the compounds, and in any one of them these different compounds are there. Cement production: there is evaporation and dehydration, there is calcination, there is clinkering, and there is cooling, right? So if you go to any cement plant, we have here in Russell a big cement plant. There are others. We usually want them to be away from the cities because there is a lot of pollution. But recently, in the last say 15-20 years, a lot of extra environmental laws have been imposed on them to add a lot of very costly machinery to get rid of the smog and so on. So these are the steps of cement production. You can quickly go through these. What is evaporation and dehydration? What is calcination? What is clinkering? What is cooling, right? So quickly, so that you have a rough idea of what it is. Then the composition of the hardened cement paste. The components are there: C, S, H. Remember, C is one thing, S is one thing, H is one thing. We have the names before. What is the volume fraction? What is the density? What type of microstructure is there? Microstructure of hardened cement paste, right? So we can see some of this structure here. Partly crystalline, partly non-crystalline, a mix. Porosity in cement. You see, there are capillary pores and then there are gel pores. So porosity is there, it can breathe. That is why once they make concrete also, then you do curing of concrete, right? You pour water on it and you let it cool, and then pour water on it, let it cool and dry. So some porosity, if it is there, then it is good or bad depending on your requirements. So that was about cements in general. Then the other category of ceramics called refractories, right? Very high temperature resistant materials. So clay based refractories are there, non-clay based refractories are there. In the non-clay, mullite is one major type and periclase is the other major type. Some are based on silica bricks, some are based on magnesium oxide, and these are very high temperature resistant materials, refractories. Aluminum silica phase diagram, right? So there is calcium oxide, iron oxide, magnesium oxide, titanium oxide, and so on inside there. We showed you this type of a phase diagram earlier. So here on one side there is silicon oxide, SiO2, on the other there is Al2O3, right? So this is where we have these refractories. So very briefly, refractories. Now structural clay products, right? Clay is actually, sand, mud, and that type of thing, from where you make plates and those type of things, glasses and so on. So structural clay, if you see the bold one, terracotta. This has been used for a very large number of years, and you see, thousands of years ago, BC, China already made these terracotta figures and figurines and so on. They are very costly antiques now. White wares. white wares, right? You see, the ones that we just showed you, you are making colored things and this and that, but your normal plate, eating plate, if it is not melamine or some type of polymer, right, then many of them are made of glass or glass type or other type of ceramics, right? Bone china, for example, that very light weight tea and coffee cups, which are very intricate and so on. So they are called white wares, and the most common is porcelain. Most common is porcelain, right, which you use to make dinner sets and tea sets and so on. Whiteware processing, there is something that we start with a bisque, and then there is something called glazing, polishing and so on, and we are showing you here that bisque, right, you are making a pumpkin shape, and before glazing, later on you will glaze it. So what is the glazing process? Temperature and pressure and this and that. So that is, and then advanced ceramics, right? All the basic types and advanced ceramics. So always, I mean, depending on the use, depending on the industries for which you make them, you have categorized them. These are abrasives, these are white wares and so on, right? These are cement type. Now advanced ceramics, very advanced ceramics, right? So we have told you in material science, you also know that they are engineered materials, not natural, for high-end applications. Ceramic armor, ceramic nanoparticles, solid oxide fuel cells, bioceramics are big examples. Ceramic armor, you see, bulletproof and so on. So boron nitride, titanium nitride, boron carbide. So some of these properties, their melting temperatures above 2500, above 3000, their Young's modulus, their density, their hardness, right? So these are advanced ceramics. Then ceramic nanoparticles, right? Ceramic is already very high level in terms of strength and hardness and temperature resistance. Now if you can make nano-sized particles from ceramics, nano-sized particles, then you can use nanotechnology to make ceramic products. So this is the breakthrough, right? Otherwise, making ceramic products had the problem, you can't melt it, you can't bend it, you can't easily machine it. So you only do powder pressing and those type of methods. But now if you have nanoparticles, then every type of nanotechnology, if you make ceramics in nano-sized particles, then you can do it. So flame aerosol process, flame aerosol, you know, right? A spray and flame. So flame aerosol process, quickly read it. You will see that this is one type of nanotechnology, right? So just read through it, and we have actually done very basics of it in earlier material science course. So here we are. Again, let me remind you, right, that at this type, when we say advanced materials technology, so we are telling you about the materials, about their properties, about their applications in the industry, and sometimes a little bit about how they are manufactured also, right? So a small amount of manufacturing is also included from time to time, right? How is cement made? How is glass made? So here, how are advanced ceramics made? Solid oxide fuel cells. Solid oxide fuel cells use electrochemistry to convert chemical energy to electrical energy, similar to the galvanic cells described earlier. Galvanic cells are there in the very chapter 1 or 2, they were there based on basic chemistry to generate electricity, right? Here they are generating chemical energy, solid oxide fuel cells. So they are fuel cells, but solid oxide. Now, when this book was written, say 10 years ago, all this was brand new. But now you know that 10 years ago, everybody was saying hydrogen as a fuel. Can we do it? Can we do it? Because there is infinite amount of hydrogen in water and in air, right? If we can separate hydrogen and use it as a fuel, then it would be huge. It will be alternate energy resource, right? Not oil based, not gas based, not solar based even, not electricity. But 10 years, 15 years ago, it looked like it would be very tough to contain hydrogen. It would be very explosive. It would be very dangerous. But already hydrogen as a fuel cell, right? Fuel cells. So solid oxide fuel cells technology, it started to grow, it started to become very modern, and then even hydrogen energy is now there, but the basis is this. What are bioceramics? Bioceramics, we have already done the biomaterials chapter, right? So we know that in prosthetics, in heart valves, in other radioactive type of treatments, for making frames, for joining your broken bones, everywhere ceramics can be used, right? So the ceramics which have been developed in such a way that they do not have immune reactions, these are now bioceramics. So you already know them, but very quickly, bioceramics. So different types of ceramic fabrication methods, right? We have highlighted only glass forming. These others will come later, don't worry, right? So glass forming, pressing is one method, blowing is another method, fiber drawing is another method. These are all methods of making glass. Sheet glass forming. If you want to make glass in sheets rather than glass fibers. You see, if you want to make glass fibers and then use these glass fibers in composites, so you have fiberglass type of composite material, so that is one thing. But if you want to make glass as sheets like windows and car windows and so on, so this is the general method. Then particulate forming, right? So milling, mixing, and this and that, particulate forming, right? So this is one other method of making ceramics. Hydroplastic forming is one of them. Slip casting is another one of them. I am showing these to you so you very quickly read it, right? Like an interesting story, but not going in a lot of detail, but at least a little and so on, so that you at least know this. When you talk about this, you can at least define this. Dry and fire the component, right? Hydroplastic, slip casting, dry it, fire it, or heat. Then drying and firing. What is called drying? Drying is this process. What is called firing? Heating it further, right? It is further drawing. Then in particulate forming, the other method is sintering. We have already told you what is sintering. You can read a little more detail about sintering here. So sintering, uniaxial compression, isostatic or hydrostatic compression, hot pressing. These are types of powder pressing, right? Powder pressing has these steps. Tape casting. Now very thin sheets. Earlier making plates of glass. Now making very thin plates. So you don't call it plate, you call it a tape of glass. So it is similar to the previous one, but very thin. And finally, in ceramics, cementation, right? You have done glass forming, you have done particulate forming, cementation, right? So these are some of the manufacturing methods of ceramics. Of course, what we missed on those slides in the previous page is nano particle size. So when you make ceramics of nanoparticle size, then of course there is no issue. You can do any type of standard nanotechnology to make the products. Now this question, what happens to ceramic materials at the end of their useful life? We talk about it in every, right? In metals and alloys, in ceramics, in polymers, in everything, that you see the environmental problem that once the service life is over, then can you recycle it? Can you reuse it, and so forth? So recycling of ceramics. So just quickly read through it. Some type of recycling is possible, not all types. Glass recycling, you break it into cullets and then you recycle it, right? So with that, we have covered almost every basic issue in ceramics, right? Every basic issue in ceramics. But remember the chapter, full title of the chapter was Ceramics and Carbon Materials, right? So very quickly, let us see what we mean by this part of the chapter.